Peacemaker would do anything for peace, which often leads him to doing, well, some of the worst things in the name of securing it. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Join me as we count down the top 10 most WTF Peacemaker moments from the DCEU comics and beyond. Number 10. Eagle hugs. I never expected to see an eagle hug anyone in a TV show, and yet here we are in the future. In the Peacemaker series, Eagly is Peacemaker's sidekick. Eagly is a bald eagle, which also happens to be the national animal of the United States, cementing Peacemaker as a hero who identifies as really being all-American. I mean, between Eagly and his car, he seems to be pretty radically patriotic. When Chris first goes to pick up Eagly from his dad's house, as his dad has been looking after Eagly while Chris was locked up in Belle Reve for the past 4 years, Eagly is super psyched to see him. So psyched, in fact, that he actually hugs Peacemaker. Chris is also amazed at this moment and asks his dad to get his phone and take a picture of it. But of course, his dad has already walked away. Hopefully there are more eagle hugs from his sidekick Eagly in Peacemaker's future though, and hopefully he can get that eagle hug selfie, cause that'd be pretty sweet. I guess it's kind of hard to take a selfie when an eagle's hugging you because they got big wings, bald eagles. They're big. They're like scary big. It gives me flashbacks to just being chased by Canadian geese as well. Those are things that are also terrifying. Speaking of animals that we associate with countries. Number 9. The talking helmet. In the comics, Peacemaker's helmet isn't just a piece of his costume, a weapon, or armor. It's much more personal than that. It's been haunted by ghosts of his victims, lost souls he feels personally responsible for because of his own father's actions during World War II, and has also ended up haunted by Chris's own split psyche as a result of him experiencing great trauma. Even in modern comics, we see his helmet take on a voice of its own during the Peacemaker short story series featured at the end of each issue of the 2019 limited series Inferior 5. In issue number 2 of Inferior 5, we are given the chapter 2 to this story titled The Helmet, which shows how Christopher Smith's helmet often berates him into manning up and returning to being Peacemaker after suffering a great amount of PTSD as a result of the invasion event, which is referred to multiple times in this series. Although the invasion event, I believe, was something that happened in the 80s or 90s, so that's alright. We can still refer to it in 2019. We don't have to forget that it happened. It happened. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn even more about some of the crazy stuff that Peacemaker has gotten up to, both in the show, in films, and all over the place in the comics, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. There's a lot more stuff to talk about. These are just a few of my favorites. Number 8. Aquaman Commentary. In the first episode of Peacemaker, within the first few minutes, there are a ton of moments that left me doing double takes and just dying of laughter because they were so ridiculous in the best way possible. Included among them is the conversation that Chris has with the hospital's janitor, Jamil, who it seems he has befriended somewhat during his stay and his recovery there. He confides in him that he is really the famous hero Peacemaker, to which Jamil responds that he doesn't even know a superhero named Peacemaker, and the Peacemaker is most definitely not famous. He goes on to give the example of Aquaman as being a famous hero. Chris responds with nothing but disgust for Aquaman, adding that Aquaman gets intimate with fishes, and that he heard it from a reliable source on Twitter, from someone who goes by the name of Pepe the Frog 89, whom he doesn't think would lie for no reason. Why would he lie for no reason? Why? I also heard a rumor about Batman and bats. Number 7. Just Jump. In episode 2 of the Peacemaker series, there are a bunch of wild things that go down. After accidentally stumbling upon and eliminating a butterfly, Peacemaker finds himself in his underwear and helmet alone and heads back to the apartment he was in to get dressed. I'm trying to be a little bit vague here, by the way, with how I'm wording this, as I don't want to give too much away, so if you've seen the episode and you know what happens, you know what happens. And if you haven't, I hope I didn't spoil anything. I don't think I spoiled anything there, so yay. The police end up arriving on scene as there was an epic fight in the area with Peacemaker versus that target butterfly that likely had been reported. Stuck between the police and trying to escape to rejoin with his new team, Peacemaker is forced to use the balconies of the apartment building to escape. And he does this simply by throwing himself down floor by floor. The landings are brutal too, and it's quickly made clear that Peacemaker is not necessarily known for his grace or his agility, although he can definitely take a beating, it seems. That quickly becomes apparent, especially considering he was just in a knife fight prior to this and was only earlier in that same day, if you actually think about how much time has passed, discharged from the hospital. So that morning he gets discharged from the hospital, gets in a crazy knife fight, and then he's throwing himself off balconies. Ouch. Number 6, the Vision of Peace. The Vision of Peace was a catchphrase that Peacemaker's helmet was workshopping. Because remember, I said his helmet could talk to him. Like the example I gave for one of the times that happens in modern comics, this one is also from the Peacemaker stories included at the end of Inferior 5. In issue number 3 of that comic, Peacemaker ends up in a fight with KG Beast, and his helmet decides to unleash a peace dove shaped energy or laser blast which blows off KG Beast's face. The helmet refers to this as giving KG Beast the Vision of Peace, which of course seemingly leaves his face entirely blown off. Poor KG Beast, he's always getting his head blown off. Can never get a break. Number 5, killed Rick Flag. Even in the comics, Rick Flag and Peacemaker, who has also been on the Suicide Squad in the Prime Earth continuity, did not seem to get along. So if you know that about them, you shouldn't be surprised that their different ideologies left them in a one-on-one fight in the end in Corto Maltese during the Project Starfish mission in the DCEU film The Suicide Squad. Although prior to that, they did get along quite well. However, you might be surprised to hear that Rick Flag actually ended up being killed by Peacemaker by the end of that fight. This is big spoilers for the Suicide Squad, but it's been a few months, so I'm assuming you've seen it. I mean, I hope you're not too surprised by that, because then it means that I did spoil it for you, and if I did, I'm sorry. But also, you should still watch the movie, it's very good. Either way, their fight is epic and full of suspense. I was, and I still am, on the edge of my seat when watching that fight. It's a great fight. Even I was amazed that Colonel Rick Flag was permanently taken off the board by Peacemaker in that movie. That was a shocking twist that I did not see coming. One that really made me feel like I was watching a high-stakes Suicide Squad film, as it should be. Number 4, not for sale. This part literally made me laugh while also making my eyes like bulge out of my head in sheer incredulous amazement. In episode 3 of the Peacemaker series, Chris and his friend and fellow self-appointed crime fighter, Vigilante, find themselves captured by one of their targets, a butterfly who appears to be US Senator Goff. And if you don't know what a butterfly is, when you watch the show, it will become clear, and I'm not going to explain it to you because I don't want to spoil anything. The senator proceeds to torment Vigilante, hoping that his cruel treatment will break Peacemaker and force him to give up information on their mission, who they're working for, and likely what they know. However, Peacemaker refuses, even when the senator threatens to cut off Vigilante's toes and then proceeds to follow through on said threat, starting out with his pinky. This whole sequence was brutal, dark, and hilarious in the best possible way, and Peacemaker's refusal to give in was both shocking but also pretty expected. Partway through the ordeal, the senator asks Peacemaker how he likes it, and he responds that he likes it a lot, and that he will not be broken no matter what happens to his friend Vigilante. He's like, I'll never give up. Meanwhile, Vigilante's like, please just give him something. I'm like dying here. Number 3, witnessed his father's death. While the Peacemaker show has taken a different direction with Christopher's father and his father's past, in the comics, Peacemaker's father is Wolfgang Schmidt. His father served in World War II, working for Germany and running one of their camps in Poland. This dark truth ends up being revealed about him and drives Wolfgang to take his own life, an act which was actually witnessed by his young son, Christopher, who was only a child at the time. It's believed that this is actually a huge part of what messed Christopher up in the New Earth continuity, traumatizing him and later causing him to have seeming visions of his father as he grew up. In these visions, Wolfgang spurs his son towards excellence in all things so that he might become worthy of his family's legacy. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. It's also going to be really messed up in the DCEU, so either way, it's a mess. Number 2, the intro. One of the most WTF moments from the Peacemaker series happens every episode near the beginning. That is, of course, the Peacemaker intro. It's so great. Seriously, this intro is so gloriously weird and bizarre. I love it so much. I love it so much I could sit and just watch it on repeat for like 2 hours. I could do that, I promise. The intro for Peacemaker involves a pretty amazing, elaborate, and oddly choreographed dance number with all the main characters and extra characters coming in and dancing with their own little groups. The whole thing is also done with completely serious faces, which makes it even more amazing. Now, I initially actually wondered how everyone was able to keep a straight face while dancing because it's just so silly, and then I realized that usually when I'm learning choreo for something, that's actually just my face. Like, I'm so focused on my next dance steps, I just look really serious because I'm thinking so much. So maybe everyone in the cast has a similar experience when it comes to learning choreo and having a resting, serious focus face, so this was easier than it looked. Either way, it's spectacularly hilarious to watch. So I'm sure the crew had a great time watching from behind the scenes. I know I would have, if I were there. I actually would probably be terrible to have on set for that. I'd be like laughing non-stop if I had to watch it. It's so ridiculous. This is like my favorite one though, when they're like Number 1. Assassinated the President. This one comes from an Elseworld story featured in Multiversity. In Pax Americana, we see a world where heroes are symbols that are often lifted up by the government. They're all American heroes, you know? Peacemaker, however, shocks the nation when he kills the President of the United States, especially being such an American hero. However, it's revealed through the course of the story that the hit itself was actually orchestrated by the President and that Chris was actually working on his orders. It was all part of a master plan to save America from itself and usher in a new era of peace. However, that mission kinda ends up failing, with Peacemaker Christopher Smith becoming disgraced and the US exploding into a pandemonium of chaos. It starts with the assassination too, so it's pretty crazy. What do you think are some of the craziest things that Peacemaker has done in the name of peace? Which version of Peacemaker do you think is the most wild? Are you watching the new Peacemaker HBO Max series, and how are you liking it so far? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.